so where do we begin in understanding these technologies? I want to look at one of the observations made by Ben Rich, who was the chief of Lockheed Martin's Skunk Works division, which is where Lockheed Martin has been working on these special access programs for the different military services, primarily for the Air Force, but also for the Army and for the Navy. And so in the background there, you see that's the, what is it, the F-117 that Ben Rich worked on. He was involved in that, as well as other Lockheed Martin projects. So this is something that Lockheed Martin has been working on a lot of these special access programs. What we have with Lockheed Martin is a company that for many, many decades has been working on a number of projects, special access projects, like the F-117. That was one of these special access programs. The SR-71 was another one. The U-2 spy plane out of Area 51, that was another one that Lockheed Martin worked on. So these were all special access programs, and they were revealed. But there are categories of special access programs, often described as unacknowledged special access programs. These are programs that are so secretive that, especially those that have to do with space, the projects that Lockheed Martin has been working on dealing with space travel, that is something that has not been released, not been declassified. And so, for example, what you have here is Ben Rich saying, quote, "We already have the means to travel to the stars, but these technologies are locked up in black projects, and it would take an act of God to ever get them out to benefit humanity." So this is an observation that Ben Rich has made, because there have been others that have been attempted to make some of this information public, but they have been prevented. There was a famous case. I know, for example, Paul Laviolette wrote about an attempt by the Boeing Corporation in the late 1990s to have some of the anti-gravity technology declassified. So Boeing asked for permission from those that controlled this technology, whether they could declassify this so that they could build some civilian airliners using anti-gravity technology. Imagine that. I mean, how transformative that would have been. But Boeing was told, no, you can't, you cannot, this technology is not going to be declassified. You just have to go ahead with the existing technologies, and that's been the case. So Ben Rich has observed that this has been really a very difficult area to declassify when it comes to anti-gravity, new energy technologies, anything that basically would make the fossil fuel industry redundant. Declassifying those technologies has been extraordinarily difficult, even though there are a lot of people, even a majority of people now within the deep black programs who have wanted this technology to come forward for different reasons. But nevertheless, it hasn't happened. And because Ben Rich understands that it's very easy to prevent classified technology to be declassified by different agencies that have an interest in that. Now, where was Skunk Works building a lot of these classified programs, the projects, where were they being conducted? This was occurring in a place called Plant 42 in Palmdale, California. So that's right next to Edwards Air Force Base. And the Palmdale facility is a very large facility. It's owned jointly by the Air Force as well as other major US corporations like Skunk Works, Northrop Grumman is involved there, as well as Boeing. I think Boeing's involvement is more secretive. I think it's associated with their highly secretive Phantom Works. And so these are some of the companies that conduct special access programs jointly with the Air Force at Plant 42. Now, the thing to keep in mind is that when you have a corporation working on an unacknowledged special access program, like building a spy plane or building a stealth aircraft like the F-117, what you have is a lot of proprietary secrets because this is not just owned by the Air Force, because you have the Air Force basically giving a contract to that company who builds the craft in collaboration with the Air Force. So when it comes to special access programs that involve, some say, anti-gravity space technologies, the Air Force will share whatever it has with the company. So it'll share whatever advanced technologies it has in its possession or it has gained through kind of foreign technology acquisition programs. And, you know, foreign technology, that can mean quite a lot of things in addition to Chinese and Russian. So I won't get into that in that presentation, but this is where you actually have Lockheed Martin working jointly with the Air Force on these technologies, and these are proprietary trade secrets. So once Lockheed gets this information from the Air Force or the Navy, or whoever the primary contractor is, and Lockheed starts working on that, then it becomes proprietary information. And so this is part of the problem, that for these companies to release these classified technologies, it's very, very difficult because they stand to lose a lot of money in that could be made through profit or through just keeping this kind of information within the control of that company. So again, that's just one of the reasons why it's so hard to declassify these kinds of technologies, because the companies themselves, like Lockheed Martin, would not really be that highly motivated to release the secrets on building some, say, anti-gravity craft that it has built for the Air Force. It would much rather just build whatever the Air Force wants and not release that kind of those secrets to the world. But nevertheless, you know, this is something that the Navy, as I will be going into, wants to be released. So they're taking it out of the hands of the corporations that has kind of like kept a stranglehold on these kinds of technologies. And if you look at you know, who are the shareholders of these major companies like Lockheed Martin or Northrop Grumman, you'll find that a lot of the shareholders have big interests in the oil industry. So this is why a lot of these companies are not very enthusiastic of releasing these technologies into the public arena. But nevertheless, sometimes there is a struggle, as I mentioned in the case of Boeing. Boeing does have an interest in switching over from the fossil fuel industry to, say, electromagnetic propulsion systems, anti-gravity systems, because that would, you know, create more reliable and cheaper craft for them, and that would raise their profits. So, but by and large, a lot of these companies have oil industry kind of influence, really holding back any attempt to declassify. So, you know, where does that take us then? So if you have all of this technology that involves, say, reverse engineering, some anti-gravity technologies that the Air Force or the Navy has in its possession, what do you do then? You know, one path is declassification, and I've already explained why declassifying this kind of technology runs into all sorts of roadblocks, because it's not only the major corporations that have major shareholders that are directly related to the oil industry, but there may be other reasons why a company might be reluctant in releasing some of these technologies. Proprietary trade secrets, they don't want competitors from getting it. They might be concerned about the prospect of countries like China or Russia getting those secrets. So getting this stuff declassified has a lot of roadblocks. So this is where we come into the other option, which is reinventing the wheel. Basically, this is where, rather than declassifying, putting all your putting all your efforts into trying to have stuff declassified, you try to reinvent the wheel, try and rebuild these technologies. And it's very interesting. I know many of you probably are very familiar with the To the Stars Academy and Tom DeLonge's Secret Machines. I mean, it's very controversial exactly what they're doing. But I notice, having watched the very beginning of the Secret Machines approach that Tom DeLonge had, he was putting all his effort into having stuff declassified and working with 10 industry insiders, high-level industry insiders from the military-industrial complex, who were helping him to try and have this stuff declassified. But now, for those of you that have been watching developments at the To the Stars Academy, you notice that now they're putting their efforts all into building these anti-gravity technologies, building electromagnetic propulsion systems. So rather than trying to declassify stuff because they realize they ran into a dead end, their emphasis has now moved into reinventing the wheel, basically having their people come up with these proposed anti-gravity vehicles, and then having the public fund that kind of reverse engineering effort. So that's another strategy, reinventing the wheel, and that I think is really where these Navy patents are taking us down this track, because the US Navy is a huge institution in the United States. But even the Navy has trouble trying to declassify stuff. But as I will be explaining, if the Navy puts its efforts into reinventing the wheel, then something else can happen. And that's what I think is going on. But so this is where we get into the idea that it's through the US patent system that you can actually have this reinventing of the wheel process begin, because there's a lot of patents applications in the patent system that have been held up under national security orders, and allegedly Trump, shortly after his inauguration, issued a presidential memorandum asking for 1,000 of these to be declassified. So the US Patent and Trademark Office is very important for us in understanding how this new world is going to come into existence, because it's going to be through inventors being allowed to have patents published, and then having industry build the technologies that those patents are describing. So first of all, we need to kind of look at what happens when an inventor asks for a patent on an invention. And obviously, if you're an inventor and you invent something that you think is going to transform society and is going to really be very significant, then you want to take out a patent to protect your invention from stopping anyone from stealing that from you. And so then you submit it to the US Patent and Trademark Office. And the normal process is that you have examiners look at your patent application, and they look at it in terms of what's scientifically feasible, if it's commercially viable, and those sorts of characteristics. I mean, they have a number of criteria that they apply, and then they'll grant the patent. But what happens is that during the process, if any publication or any patent application involves an area that may be of interest to the national security community, then the commissioner for the US Patent and Trademark Office tells the national security community that there's a patent here that you might want to take a look at in terms of whether that's going to be subjected to national security order. So what is a national security order? So in the Invention Secrecy Act of 1951, so that's in the US code, this is what it says, quote, whenever the publication or disclosure of an invention by the publication of an application or by the granting of a patent is, in the opinion of the head of an interested government agency, determined to be detrimental to national security, the Commissioner for Patents at the United States Patent and Trademark Office must issue a secrecy order and withhold the grant of a patent for such period as the national interest requires, end quote. So basically what happens there is that the Commissioner for the Patents Office will issue a secrecy order if a patent application is in the opinion of some government agency detrimental to the national security. So if you come up with, say, a free energy device, a device that may be is able to utilize solar energy much more efficiently than, say, what's currently out there, then that can be something that some government agency might say, no, that's detrimental to national security. Because if you put out, let's just say your patent application for a solar panel that maybe has like an 80% efficiency rating, right? So it can convert 80% of sunlight into electrical energy. You know, that's far higher than existing solar panels. I think they're kind of closer to around 20% efficiency. So that could be deemed to be detrimental to national security. And so, so that would mean that there would be a secrecy order that would be issued, and that patent application is effectively stymied. It doesn't go forward, it's not granted. The inventor cannot go internationally with that patent application because it's subject to a national security order. And they can't talk about it publicly because it involves national security. So basically, for all intents and purposes, a patent application for, say, a high efficiency solar panel might be stymied just because someone in the national security system says that this is something that could be detrimental to national security. So the Invention Secrecy Act goes on, quote, an invention shall not be ordered, kept secret, and the grant of a patent withheld for a period of more than 1 year. The Commissioner shall renew the order at the end thereof, or at the end of any renewal period, for additional periods of 1 year upon notification by the head of the department or the chief technical officer of the agency who caused the order to be issued, that an affirmative determination has been made that the national interest continues so to require. So that means that every year, all those national security orders that have been issued that have prevented the publication of patents, they need to be renewed. But the Commissioner basically approaches the National Security Agency or whatever government department that issued that national security order, or asked for the national security order to be kind of issued, asks them, well, is this still subject to national security constraints, or is this still detrimental to the national security? And that agency will say yes or no. If they say yes, then it's renewed for another year. And so this has been going on for decades. There are some patent applications that literally have been held up for decades, and the inventors have not been able to do anything simply because these national security orders are renewed annually, and the inventor has no recourse. They can't appeal, they can't go to the courts. They can't publicly talk about this. They can't go internationally. Basically, the livelihood that they could have earned from this, they might receive some compensation. There are provisions, or they may be actually asked to work in a black project. That's another way. I know Thomas Townsend Brown was one of these people that was asked to work for the Navy because he had a number of patents dealing with some anti-gravity technology. So that's maybe for some inventors, that's what happens to them, that they can't publish their patents. They're not going to make any money out of it. All the time and energy they put into those patent applications and the livelihood they would have earned is all under threat. So if the Army or the Navy or a corporation approaches them and says, we want you to work for us, sign a contract with us, and you can build your energy device or whatever it is that they were working on. So it's a system that basically ensures that a lot of these inventions that could revolutionize our planet are kept in secrecy. So it's been a very effective thing. So now you have the number of patents that are subject to secrecy orders. So here you have, and this has been something that the Federation of American Scientists, they were able to get these statistics through the Patents Office, and it tells us each fiscal year how many how many secrecy orders have been issued against patent applications. So for example, here you can see in fiscal year 2015, there were 5,579 secrecy orders that were in effect. So that means there were potentially 5,579 inventions that could transform the energy industry, the health industry, transportation industry, aerospace, all of those different sectors of our economy and society that have been effectively stymied because some government agency said that this release of that or granting of that patent would be of damage to the national security, and so that patent application is effectively put on ice unless it's being worked on in a classified program. Tells us that in 2015 there were 95 patent applications that were new patent applications that were subjected to secrecy orders, and that 36 were rescinded. So that means that in fiscal year 2015, only 36 out of the 5,579 patent applications were lifted because some agency said, "That's okay, you can release that now. It's not going to be such a threat." But obviously you can see the number of security orders are quite high. And then at the bottom, it tells you the sponsoring agencies for the new secrecy orders. So we see in fiscal year 2015, there were secrecy orders that came in because of some foreign government, friendly government, foreign origin requested that. You had the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, Department of Energy, and so on. So NASA even, and DARPA. So you have all of these different government agencies that all, for whatever reason, have issued a request for national security or for a secrecy order to be put in place on those inventions. So now I want you to kind of like go to fiscal, we can go to fiscal year 2018. Well, no, fiscal year 2017, sorry. So this is the first year of the Trump administration. There were 5,784 secrecy orders in total that were in effect. There were 132 new secrecy orders, and there were 28 secrecy orders that had been rescinded. So fiscal year 2017, that's when Trump came into office, and allegedly that's when he issued his memorandum for the intelligence community to start lifting these security orders and to declassify 1,000 of these. So this is what apparently in 2017, of the 5,784 national security orders that were in place, Trump's memorandum basically said 1,000 of these need to be rescinded. So that's that, and he gave it a two-year timetable for that to occur. So we can see that there was very, very little effect in 2017, but that's when it was issued. So fiscal year 2018, we see there was an uptick. There were 77 security orders that were rescinded. So that's an uptick. You know, previously there were like 36 in fiscal year 2015, 20 in 2016, 28 in 2017. So 77 in 2018, but still that's, you know, significantly less than 1,000. So what does that mean? That if Trump did indeed issue a national security, did issue a memorandum, a top secret memorandum to the intelligence community saying, I want you to declassify and to rescind your security orders against these inventions, that wasn't having much of an effect at all. And fiscal year 2019, last year, you can see that there were only two. I mean, out of 5,878, only 2 of these were rescinded. So that means that all the others, 5,876, that meant that year, the commissioner for the US Patent and Trademark Office received an affirmative from all of the agencies. You can see here some of the agencies that said, yes, that national security order needs to be kept in place. So it gives you an idea of how difficult it is to declassify things and to have these kinds of secrecy orders lifted. So what kind of patents are subjected to secrecy orders? That's a good one, because that takes us directly into the area that we're going to be looking at in this presentation. So there's a patent security category review list. So this was something you'll find on the Federation of American Scientists website, and down there the source, patent security category review list. So they have, I think it's roughly, I think it was about 18 groups, and the group number 11, I thought that was the one that was very interesting and directly relevant to us. Item number 8, solar voltaic generators. AMC, that's Army, that's Army Material Command. If greater than 20% efficient, it's NASA and the Air Force. So basically this is telling us that the Army, the Air Force and the Navy, if an inventor comes up with a device that is able to generate electrical energy from solar energy that is more than 20% efficient, that's subject to secrecy orders. So so this tells us immediately that you know, there's very powerful limits on just how efficient a lot of these inventions can be, because if they're too efficient, that means you're going to have a secrecy order imposed upon you, which, you know, is crazy when you think of it. You know, the only reason that this could be happening is because the fossil fuel industry is so powerful, and it doesn't want to change things, that its influence is so great that it's got the Army, NASA and the Air Force basically wanting to ensure that what becomes publicly available in terms of solar energy efficiency isn't any greater than 20%. Then you have item 9, energy conversion systems with conversion efficiencies in excess of 70 to 80%. You know, fossil fuel, you know, that doesn't quite get anywhere near that level of efficiency. Solar energy, of course, doesn't. We're talking nuclear fission. I think nuclear fission is around 60%, 65% efficient. That's probably one of the most efficient kind of energy systems out there, nuclear fission, far more efficient than a, say, coal or gas or any kind of fossil fuel conversion system that's out there. So anything that is greater than 70 to 80%, the Air Force, the Navy, and the Army are all going to slap a national security order on that, or basically make an objection that this releasing such technology can threaten national security. So where does all this, so in terms of energy efficiency, so let's look a little bit at this. So the first law of thermodynamics is the physical law which states that the total energy of a system and its surrounding remain constant. The law is also known as the law of conservation of energy, which states energy can transform from one form into another, but can neither be created nor destroyed within an isolated system. And that's a pretty conventional interpretation. And there you have a diagram which basically shows the energy that goes in. And so for example, if we're talking, that system process, if we say we're talking about, say, your car, the internal combustion energy, the internal combustion engine that you have in your car. So you got the energy coming in, so that's petroleum, gas. It goes in, and you actually have the process, the internal combustion energy, generating heat and so forth that drives the pistons. So you have energy coming out, which is your tires being rotated, and that of course is how the car works. And you have loss. You have loss in terms of the exhaust, and that's the way conventional system operates, where you have a closed system. So the internal combustion energy, internal combustion engine is an example of a closed system. In terms of, you can measure the energy going in, the potential energy in the oil, and the energy going out in terms of the work that's performed on the tires and the heat that's coming out, and so that's a closed system, and energy remains constant. If you measure the work being done by the pistons driving the camshaft that rotates the wheels, and the energy that's lost through heat, that all exactly matches the potential energy inside of the gas. So that's a closed system, and so that's how energy efficiency is measured. Now this is where we get into why a lot of these inventions have been subjected to national security orders. Because of over-unity inventions allegedly violate energy conservation laws. So in an over-unity machine or engine or invention, the energy input is 100%, whatever goes in is 100%, but the energy output is 150%, or could be much more than that. But the important thing is that it's over-unity because it's over 100%. And this is where people like Nikola Tesla were the first that we know of that came up with these over-unity devices. I mean, he came up with a radiant energy device. I think it was in 1906 from memory. A radiant energy device, 1906. That's over 100 years ago. But of course, as we know, Nikola Tesla was shut down, driven into poverty, and his free energy devices were never put into effect because there was too much money being made from the fossil fuel industry, JP Morgan and so forth. As I'm sure many of you are aware, was just making huge profits and didn't think that coming up with over-unity devices where you tap into the Earth's kind of natural electromagnetic field and use that to power devices, that would have been an over-unity device, but that would have bankrupted a lot of the oil companies. And Standard Oil back in the days, today it's Exxon, and some other offshoots. But Standard Oil was huge back in those days, and J.P. Morgan was running a bank and also had lots of interests in Standard Oil, which was run by the Rockefeller family. So you kind of get an idea of the major companies that were against any of these over Unity devices ever coming into existence, and why it is that you would have had patents that were dealing with these over Unity inventions being subjected to national security orders, because they're far more efficient to 70 to 80%, which is the top end of, say, nuclear fission. But over Unity, you're 150%, 200%, or whatever it is, and this is very real. And because these over Unity devices allegedly violate the energy conservation law, then they're ridiculed. Any examiner in the patent office who looks at an alleged over Unity device says, well, this violates the energy conservation law, so it can't work, it's impossible. And so they'll dismiss it. Or if the inventor is smart enough to be able to frame it in a way that it's not going to be objected to by the patent examiner, nevertheless, someone can say, well, this allegedly has an energy efficiency of, say, 95%. While that we can subject that to national security orders. So there are different ways in which any kind of over Unity device is blocked and never sees the light of day in terms of a patent. And it is a kind of it's very short-sighted because often what these Unity devices do is, especially when you look at Nikola Tesla, where he says that he is tapping into the radiant energy field, or the Earth's electromagnetic field, and he's able to tap into that and able to produce electricity that could be used for whatever purpose. That many scientists look at that and they don't recognize the Earth's electromagnetic field as a legitimate energy input device. So here you have like your over Unity machine. If you say, okay, I'm tapping into the Earth's electromagnetic field, which is abundant, which is what Tesla was able to do, and you're able to generate a lot of energy because of that through your device. Well, obviously your output, doesn't really violate energy conservation law, because what your input is actually the Earth's electromagnetic field. So, there's abundant energy there. And so, your energy efficiency in reality is going to be tiny compared to the Earth's electromagnetic field. But of course, scientists, engineers, or patent examiners will say that, well, what powers your over Unity device? What's the power supply? Maybe there's a little battery that kind of that's used to get it all going. But then once it's going, it's generating sufficient power. Well, the examiner will say, well, this is a perpetual motion machine. It's impossible, so I'm not going to grant the patent. So, but that's overlooking the fact that that machine might be tapping into the Earth's electromagnetic field, or into the 0-point field that others have talked about. Okay, so we've seen now that patent applications can be stymied. So publication of new patents applications through the US Patent and Trademark Office is an effective end run around the obstacles to declassification and lifting of secrecy orders. So we're talking about, okay, I've described the problems here. So how do you reinvent the wheel? How do you kind of get around these secrecy orders that have been put in place to prevent patents from being published and being made available to the general public, or that have been used in classified programs and have not been declassified. And, what can you do about that? Well, one way is to kind of like put in a new patent application for something very different, but operates on similar principles, and do it in a way that it can get through this system of the Patents Office putting secrecy orders on it. So the US Navy is circumventing obstacles to declassification and secrecy orders on advanced aerospace technologies through the publication of patents assigned to the Secretary of the Navy. So this is the Navy's way of getting around this system, which has blocked a lot of these new kinds of inventions ever being released into the public arena, is that you actually have patent applications being made on behalf of a major institution like the US Navy, so that the actual Navy puts its full weight behind that patent application. So that way that patent application cannot be withheld. So that so the patent examiner isn't going to be forced to issue a national security order or secrecy order on that patent application, because the Navy is behind it. If it was just someone who doesn't have a powerful institution like the Navy behind him, then the patent examiner could either deny it or have a secrecy order put in place, because in their view they might have, say, some other government agency say, no, this could violate national security. But because this is coming from the Navy, then it's much harder to have a secrecy order put in place. It's much harder for another government entity to say, well, this is a violation or this could threaten national security, because it's the Navy that's behind it. So this is the way in which the US Navy could put its force or its prestige behind an invention and kind of like ram it through the patent office. So this, to my mind, is similar to reinventing the wheel. So we're going to see that. We're going to see exactly how the Navy has been doing this through a series of patent applications. And these patent applications are revolutionary. They involve using innovative electromagnetic technologies that are far more efficient than the conventional propulsion systems that we know of, like in the rocket industry. And the fossil fuel industry really has no answer to these kinds of technologies being released. But because it's the Navy that's behind this, that makes it something that we can be optimistic about, that as members of the general public, we can see, okay, a major government entity, the United States Navy, actually the Department of the Navy, is behind these patents. They want this to be publicized. They want the public to learn about these. They want scientists at different universities, at different companies, to look at these patents and say, hey, we can build this. We can build this, and we can actually build a craft, or we can build a propulsion system,